I made a super quick lightfall prep video, and in the comments, I asked you guys if you were interested in seeing a video going over how my team preps for a day 1 raid race, and surprisingly, a lot of you guys said yes. So in this video, I'm going to be going over everything that my team personally does to practice and more or less prep in terms of playing the game, going into new seasons with raid releases. Just for context, we recently placed 92nd for the Kingsfall raid race and managed to place up in the top 50 for Deepstone Crypt back in the day. We definitely aren't the best of the teams running, but these are some pretty solid placements. So I feel like when it comes to practicing and then executing during contest mode, we do a pretty decent job. Not saying any of this to flex or anything like that, just wanted people to understand the level that we play at so that you guys can judge if this video will help you out. That being said, if you guys are trying to improve your placement up to the top 100 or top 50, or just looking to make day 1s easier in general, then this video will definitely help you out. There isn't going to be anything magical that we do to prep, but I will be explaining the best places to practice, how you should be practicing as a team, and what other areas are good in the game to improve as a team in different aspects. Starting things off, really, there are going to be 3 major things that you want to be able to work on and do during a day 1 raid race in this order. First and foremost is going to be staying alive while playing 20 under power. Second is then going to be dealing enough damage, once again, while 20 under. This power delta often leaves teams getting damage checked during boss encounters. And then third is going to be figuring out mechanics. Mechanics are very important, but you only really need this if you want to pace competitively, as you can always just get day 1 clears waiting for other teams to figure stuff out first. So starting in area number 1, how can you practice surviving? There are 2 main areas that my team likes to use in order to practice survival, which mimics contest mode pretty well. First and foremost is going to be in any raid setting where you lower your power to -20 or even lower. You guys can do this in a ton of different ways by using old gear or even pulling things from collections. While doing this, we have also been running at tier 9 resilience. Tier 9 is going to be a 32% damage resist value, which will be super similar to the 30% that we're going to be getting at tier 10 next season. If you guys can't manage to get exactly -20 and are a bit higher or even a bit lower, you can also just adjust your resilience to make up for this. I'm going to have a link to a spreadsheet in the description below, which shows the extra damage that you guys take while under power, so you can check with this to adjust accordingly if you guys need to. In my opinion, this method is great because it will also teach you how to survive as a team. This way you can learn how aggressive you might need to play so that you can kill ads before they wipe your team, while also playing passive enough to not die during the encounter. The only major downside to this method of playing the game is that your weapons will more than likely be overpowered, meaning even though you are taking damage like it is contest mode, you're dealing damage closer to in a normal raid setting. This means your ad clear and damage to tankier enemies is going to be way higher than it should be, making this much easier. Because of this, to get a feel for how weapons work during contest mode, we honestly like running the Legend campaign. Running this with 3 people is going to have you set at -15 power with additional modifiers that honestly make ad clearing harder than in a day 1 setting. Enemies will not flinch easily, and they will also take way more damage to kill. This also will mimic the damage that you take during a day 1 pretty well, so practicing survival here is solid, but the downside is that it's not a raid, so you can't practice with your entire team. Overall, these 2 areas should teach you what it's like to survive during a day 1 raid race, along with learn how to play your life. Next up, learning boss damage is going to require a bit of a different setting. This goes back to your weapons dealing increased damage, making things a bit easier to kill. The same thing will be true even if you're -20 going against a boss. Just being -20 with max power level weapons will easily allow you to 2 to 3 phase most bosses that would usually require 3 to 4 phases during contest mode, so this isn't a great way to practice. Instead, what we do is pretty much the same thing as before, but we use a Master Raid to practice damage instead. Master Raids are 1610 power this season, and Kingsfall is going to always be available right now. You could honestly just do all your practice in a Master Raid. The only major difference is going to be champions, but either way, with this being 20 over the current weapon's pinnacle cap, it makes it literally perfect for testing damage against bosses. Once again, you want to make sure that your EPL or effective power level is still 20 under the cap of the raid. So when we are in Master Kingsfall, we tend to be around the 1590 mark the whole time. We are going to be going into the Lightfall raid with a ton of meta changes compared to the recent raid races. Linears more than likely won't be useful. Div is now only a 15% buff. Tether, which is a 30% buff and is likely one of the best options to use, got duration changes. And then obviously we have a ton of build crafting changes, which will also affect things like Font of Might. not to mention any sandbox changes from now until Lightfall, and changes we will be getting the day the DLC launches. So going into a master raid now and playing with a bunch of different setups for a boss encounter is going to give you a good idea of what will and won't work during contest mode. Lastly, I know that mechanics were a third most important thing that I did mention, but honestly, the only other way to practice learning mechanics fast is by doing dungeon races. Other than that, there really aren't any major pieces of content that have difficult mechanics to learn, and with recent raid releases, the mechanics really haven't been that hard either. The only other thing that we will be practicing is trying encounters with varying loadouts, including weapons and armor, especially optimizing who on your team is going to be doing finishers. This way you can get an understanding of what is going to be most optimal in pre-existing encounters, so when you go into a similar encounter in the new raid, you know what should work best. Overall, that is all that I think you can really do to prep for a day one raid race in terms of practicing. I know a lot of teams will just go into a regular raid -20 and assume that this is similar to contest mode when it really isn't. So I wanted to highlight that aspect of practicing and how to do this more correctly. Let me know if you guys do have any questions in the comments below about prep, or if there is anything that you do that you think I might have missed or most teams aren't aware of. I do stream over on my Twitch a bunch where we do low mans and speedruns live. A link to that and my Discord server are both in the description below. Anyways, that's all for this video. As always, have a good one, guys. Peace.